Hey, welcome to Starbound. I'm Daniel Pierce, and I'm going to be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories. That's including Sunspire Academy and Frarian and Rimiki. If you'd like to unlock early access and support our new episodes and series, tap join below and become a Starbound member today. Now, let's get into today's story. General Volox of the Threx Dominion had conquered 17 worlds with the methodical precision of a cosmic clockmaker. Each campaign had followed the sacred protocols laid down in the Codex Bellicus Galacticus, the ancient tome that governed civilized warfare across the known galaxy. Preliminary reconnaissance, diplomatic overtures, measured escalation, honorable victory, magnanimous occupation. It was a dance as old as starlight, performed by species intelligent enough to understand that war, while sometimes necessary, should never be chaotic. His tactical ridges pulsed a steady amber as he reviewed the pre-invasion intelligence one final time. Earth, a primitive world on the galactic periphery, inhabited by bipedal mammals who had barely achieved interplanetary flight. Their military technology was laughably crude. Their political systems fragmented. Their strategic thinking, well, according to the data, they didn't appear to have any. It should have been routine. The infiltration shuttle Crimson Talon shuddered slightly as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Through the viewport, Volux could see the blue-green marble that would soon be the 18th jewel in the Threx crown. Standard procedure. Observe for 72 hours, document military capabilities, identify key strategic assets, then return with a comprehensive invasion plan. Simple, straightforward, civilized.
Initiating biomechanical cloaking,
he announced as the shuttle touched down in a heavily wooded area. The system hummed to life, reshaping their natural forms into crude approximations of the local inhabitants. The process was always slightly uncomfortable, like wearing clothes made of living tissue that occasionally forgot which species it was supposed to be mimicking. Volux examined his new form in the reflection of the shuttle's hull, still nearly 7 feet tall, with shoulders that belonged on a siege engine, but the humans he had studied in the cultural database came in all sizes. Some of their warriors, the ones they called football players, were even larger.
Remember,
He addressed the team as they stepped onto alien soil for the first time.
We are here to observe and catalog their military capabilities. Standard Phase 1 reconnaissance. Do not engage unless compromised. Do not reveal your true nature. And above all, do not let them know we are gathering intelligence for invasion.
Zeke had taken the form of a tall, lean, humane female with short, dark hair and the kind of intense eyes that suggested she spent a lot of time looking through microscopes. Her disguise was nearly perfect, except for the way she moved. Too precisely, like a machine trying to remember how biological creatures were supposed to walk. Moldar appeared as a middle-aged human male with graying hair and the soft build of someone who spent more time with books than weapons. He had chosen wire-rimmed glasses as part of his disguise, claiming they made him look scholarly and non-threatening. The fact that his eyes occasionally glowed with faint bioelectric energy when he was thinking hard would hopefully go unnoticed. Grixon had opted for the appearance of a human in his early 30s, heavily muscled, but with the kind of casual demeanor that suggested his strength was natural rather than cultivated for warfare. It was a good disguise, except for his tendency to analyze every sound, movement, and shadow as potential threats. The peaceful species, Volux had learned, didn't constantly scan for ambush opportunities. They crested a small hill and beheld what their scans had identified as a military training facility. "Sweet, merciful void," Zeke whispered, her perfect human disguise momentarily slipping as her eyes flared electric blue. It looked like a post-apocalyptic theme park designed by someone who had never heard of safety regulations. Shipping containers had been welded into multi-level fortress structures. Abandoned cars were stacked into defensive barriers. What appeared to be sections of actual buildings, a gas station, a small house, even part of a school bus, had been arranged into a sprawling maze of cover and concealment. And swarming through it all were hundreds of humans engaged in what could only be described as enthusiastic warfare. Some wore full military camouflage that would have been appropriate on any battlefield in the galaxy. Others wore T-shirts with messages like, "Beer, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems," and shorts in colors so neon it violated passerbys' corneas. A few had opted for costumes that appeared to be inspired by ancient Earth movies. One human was dressed as what Moldar's database identified as a zombie, while another wore the distinctive black armor of some kind of space warrior. They were all shooting each other. "Sir." Moldar's voice carried the strange tone of someone whose worldview was being systematically demolished. "The database indicates that human military personnel maintain strict discipline during training exercises. Uniform appearance, coordinated movements, clear command structure." He gestured helplessly at the chaos below. "This appears to be..." A human in neon green shorts came sprinting up the hill toward their position, firing some kind of modified weapon behind him at 3 pursuers. When the projectile struck, they exploded in brilliant splatters of yellow paint, leaving vivid marks on the pursuer's clothing.
"Contact front!"
The fleeing human shouted with what sounded like genuine military terminology. Then, without missing a beat, he added,
"You only catch the Tennessee tear today, boys!"
The human dove behind a rusted truck that had been painted with flames and the words "Death Wagon," popped up for a quick burst of return fire, then shouted,
"You'll never take me alive, you magnificent bastards!" Woohoo!
before launching himself over the hood in a maneuver that violated every principle of tactical movement Volux had ever learned. His pursuers cheered appreciatively even as they gunned him down in a crossfire of multicolored paint projectiles.
"I got him!"
One shouted.
Finally got him to shut up, did you?
Another congratulated the shooter.
"Good Lord! Beautiful death spiral, Tommy! Oh, man!"
Called another.
"That's going on the highlight reel."
The dead human, Tommy apparently, raised his paint-splattered head from the ground and grinned.
Y'all got me good. That was some tactical shit right there."
"Appears to be recreational," Moldar finished weakly. Zeke's scanning equipment was working overtime, analyzing the scene with growing confusion. The humans appear to be using non-lethal ammunition, paint-based markers designed to simulate battlefield wounds. Their weapons are modified civilian sporting equipment. But, sir, she paused, watching a group of combatants help Tommy to his feet while congratulating him on his epic death spiral and offering him a beer. "Their tactical approach is... I don't have a classification for this." A loudspeaker crackled to life across the battlefield, and a voice that sounded like it had been filtered through gravel and enthusiasm announced,
"Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 50th annual Blood Splatter Fest! 3 days of organized mayhem in the beautiful mountains of Tennessee. Remember our motto: safety third, fun second, and victory is just a happy accident. If you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough. If you're not bleeding, you're not leading. Let the bodies hit the floor."
This was followed by what could only be described as a primal war cry from several hundred human throats, a sound that would have made the berserkers of Vega Prime proud.
We need to integrate.
Volux decided, though every instinct screamed that this was a terrible idea.
Gather intelligence on their training methods and military capabilities.
They approached what appeared to be a command structure, a modified recreational vehicle that had been painted in camouflage colors and festooned with netting, antennas, and a hand-painted sign reading, "Blood Spatterfest Registration. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." A human female with purple hair, arms covered in intricate tattoos, and the kind of smile that suggested she enjoyed other people's suffering, looked up from a clipboard. She wore a tank top that read, "Chaos Coordinator," and had a name tag that said, "Hi, I'm Raven, and I'll be your death dealer today." "Well, hey there, fresh meat," she called out in an accent that Muldar's linguistic protocols identified as Southern United States, subtype gleefully homicidal. "Y'all looking to join our little family reunion? Entry fee's $50 per head, paint's extra. And if you don't have gear, Crazy Eddie's got everything you need to make your enemies cry." She gestured toward a vendor area where a human male was enthusiastically demonstrating something he called a Full Auto Annihilator Mark IV Widowmaker Special. We are new to this form of training," Volok said carefully, his disguiseless vocal cords struggling with human speech patterns. "Oh, first-timers? Oh, honey, you are in for a treat." Raven's grin widened to show teeth that had been artificially sharpened. "Fair warning, though, Jimmy's team over there," she pointed to a group of humans in matching military surplus clothing who were studying what appeared to be architectural blueprints. "They take shit way too seriously. Last year, they built actual functioning claymore mines. Of course, they were filled with biodegradable glitter instead of shrapnel, but still." She laughed, a sound like broken glass being used as a percussion instrument. "Nearly got themselves banned." "They built military-grade explosive devices," Zeke added, her scanning equipment struggling to process the contradiction, "and weren't banned." "Well, welcome to paintball," Raven continued, apparently unaware of the alien mental breakdown occurring in front of her. "Now, you guys need to sign some waivers. Standard stuff. Won't sue if you get shot, won't sue if you get exploded, you know, the basics." She handed them a stack of paperwork that appeared to be mostly legal disclaimers written in what Moldar's translation protocols could only render as aggressively cheerful legalese. 43 minutes later, after signing documents that would have made a Ferengi contract lawyer weep with joy, they found themselves equipped with what the vendor assured them were beginner-friendly massacre machines, and assigned to a team called the Apocalypse Pony Express. Their team captain was a heavy-set human who introduced himself as Matt Tank Rodney, a 38-year-old construction foreman from El Paso who had been playing paintball for 15 years and took it about as seriously as a heart attack, but with more beer. Tank wore camouflage pants, a t-shirt that read "Lie, Deny, Bleed 'em Dry," and a baseball cap covered in patches from what appeared to be various military units, paintball teams, and at least one establishment called Bikini Bob's Bait Shop and Titty Bar.
"All right, newbies,"
Tank announced, gathering his team around a picnic table that had been converted into a tactical planning station with the addition of a laminated battlefield map and several empty beer bottles.
"Welcome to Pony Express. We deliver death with a smile, pain with pleasure, and victory with style. That's our motto. I made it up myself."
The rest of the team was an eclectic mix that would have defied military recruitment standards on any civilized world. There was Miguel, a soft-spoken accountant from Phoenix who wore thick glasses and introduced himself by explaining the statistical probability of various flanking maneuvers. Sarah, a veterinarian from Austin, who discussed battlefield tactics with the same calm professionalism she probably used to explain surgical procedures to pet owners. Jake, a 19-year-old college student, who couldn't seem to speak without using movie quotes and had apparently painted his paintball gun to look like something from a science fiction film. And then there was Crazy Eddie. Crazy Eddie was not technically part of their team, but he had attached himself to their group like a tactical advisor with severe ADHD and an apparent disregard for most laws of physics. He was a small, wiry human with wild hair, manic eyes, and the kind of grin that suggested he had seen the face of madness and asked it out for coffee.
"First roll of blood spatter."
Eddie announced, producing a paintball gun that appeared to have been modified by someone who viewed manufacturers' warranties as personal challenges.
Ain't about the size of your gun. It's about how creatively you use it. See this beauty.
He held up what had once been a standard marker, but now resembled something from a fever dream.
Dual feed system, electronic trigger, custom barrel with precision rifling, and a little surprise I call the Boom Boom Special. Perfectly legal under tournament rules, because nobody thought to ban improvised explosive celebrations.
What exactly, Moldar asked carefully, is an improvised explosive celebration? Eddie's grin somehow managed to widen further.
You'll see.
Tank continued the briefing.
All right, so today's game is called Five Flag Clusterfuck. Excuse the language, Sarah. I know you don't like the profanity.
I'm a veterinarian, Tank, Sarah replied dryly. I've heard worse from pen owners when they get their bills.
Right, so 5 flags scattered around the course, and you gotta hold 3 simultaneously to win. Also, there's a guy called the Reaper wandering around with a rocket launcher full of permanent paint, and if he tags you, you're out of the whole match. Questions?
What are the rules of engagement? Moldar asked, falling back on standard military procedure. The entire team stared at him in silence. Tank's expression suggested he had just asked about the mating habits of unicorns.
Rules?
Tank finally asked.
Brother, the only rule is don't actually kill anybody. Everything else, fair game. Psychological warfare, ambush tactics, bribery, seduction. If you swing that way, you know what I mean?
Tank winked.
But surely there are protocols for prisoner treatment, civilian protection, appropriate use of...
Volix began.
Look, big guy.
Tank interrupted, his tone shifting to something that sounded almost paternal.
I can see you're military, real military, but not weekend warrior bullshit. That's cool. We got respect for the uniform around here, but out here, we fight dirty because rules are for the real world. This ain't the army. This is paintball, and in paintball, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. But don't tell Raven I said that.
Jake nodded sagely.
As the great philosopher Bruce Lee once said, be like water, my friend. Also, boards don't hit back, but that's less relevant here.
Did Bruce Lee actually say that? Sarah asked.
Probably. If not, he should have.
A horn sounded across the battlefield, a deep, resonant note that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself.
Woo! Game on!
Tank roared, and something primordial awakened in the humans around them. The transformation was instantaneous and terrifying. These people, who moments before had been discussing tax preparation strategies in veterinary medicine, suddenly became something else entirely. Not soldiers exactly, but something far more disturbing. Enthusiastic amateur warriors who had watched too many action movies and had access to industrial equipment. They scattered in every direction, no apparent tactical coordination, screaming war cries that ranged from ancient Celtic battle shouts to movie quotes that sounded like mating calls. The Threx, trained in 17 different forms of combat across 12 worlds, were utterly unprepared for what happened next. One human, a middle-aged man in a World's Okayest Dad t-shirt, ran directly toward enemy fire while yelling,
"Witness me!"
before being cut down in a spectacular display of colorful paint splatters. His teammates cheered. Another group had fashioned a primitive battering ram from a shopping cart, a pool noodle, and what appeared to be a mannequin dressed as a pirate, and were attempting to breach a fortified position while chanting what Moldar linguistic protocols identified as either a drinking song or a religious hymn. Possibly both.
This is madness,
Grixon muttered, taking cover behind a concrete barrier as paint rounds whizzed overhead like rainbow-colored bullets.
No.
Volix realized with growing horror as he watched a human named Kyle attempt to use a slingshot to launch paint-filled balloons while riding piggyback on someone called Big Dave.
This is humanity.
3 hours into what the humans called organized chaos, General Volox was beginning to understand why the Galactic Council had flagged Earth as a potential threat. It wasn't their technology. The paint-based weapons were crude but effective. It wasn't their tactics, if what he was witnessing could even be called tactics. It was their complete and utter disregard for everything that made warfare civilized and noble. Volox had been raised since incubation to value honor and fair fighting. He didn't realize that although humans had a time and place for such values, this was not the time nor the place. The first major incident occurred when Miguel the accountant calmly walked up to a fortified position held by what appeared to be a unit of frat boys. "Excuse me," Miguel called out politely, adjusting his glasses, "but I've been running probability calculations on your defensive position, and I'm afraid the statistical likelihood of your survival is approximately 3.7%. "What?" The guy's voice cracked. "Well, you see, you've got good cover from the front, but your flanks are completely exposed. Given the average marksmanship rating I've observed today, about 62% accuracy at this range, and the fact that there are currently 4 separate teams converging on your position." Miguel pulled out what appeared to be a pocket calculator. Yes, 3.7%, maybe 4.1 if that young man there is as good a shot as he appears to be." There was a pause. Another guy poked his head around from behind a board. Are you trying to get us to surrender by doing math at us?" "Oh, no," Miguel replied cheerfully. "I'm just letting you know so you can make an informed tactical decision. Personally, I'd recommend a fighting withdrawal toward the blue flag, but that's just my opinion." "This is the weirdest psychological warfare I've ever encountered," muttered the first. "Yeah, it's working though," admitted the other. "I'm genuinely worried about our flanks now." They surrendered 2 minutes later, when Miguel's predictions proved accurate to within half a percentage point. While Miguel confused the frat boys with statistics and weird language, his team flanked the frat boys and plastered them with paint. "Sir," Zeke's voice came through their encrypted channel, "I'm observing concerning behaviors in Sector 7. Volox's enhanced vision zoomed in on the location. A group of humans had cornered 3 opponents in what appeared to be a rusted school bus converted into a mobile fortress. Standard protocol would be to demand surrender, accept it gracefully, and move on to the next objective. Instead, the attacking force had begun what could only be described as psychological torture through aggressive friendship. "Y'all in there best come out," came the first voice, slow, reasonable, like a man explaining tire rotation at a funeral. "Ain't nobody mad, yet, but I do tend to itch if I stand still too long. Doc says it's vascular, so don't push it." Second voice cut in, higher, wiry, like it just crawled out of a pawn shop. "We got offerings. 1 thermos of gas station coffee, still warmish, a half bag of pork rinds, and a moon pie we found under the seat. Packaging's still intact, spiritually speaking." Then the third voice. "Also, Denny here is prepared to read off the back of a chlorophyll label. You ever heard what's on the back of a chlorophyll label? It's boring as shit. Puts the roadrunner to sleep. Now, none of us want to do it, but we will. So you might as well just come on out while dignity's still on the table." The defenders were laughing so hard that the return fire was wildly inaccurate. "They're employing advanced psychological warfare techniques," Zeke reported, her voice carrying the tone of someone whose reality was being systematically dismantled. "Combining intimidation with comedy and genuine concern for their opponent's entertainment value." "It's working," Modar observed, watching the defenders' combat effectiveness decline as they struggled to aim while laughing. "The defenders' tactical capabilities have been reduced by approximately 60%, but their morale appears to have improved." This paradox was interrupted by a new voice crackling over the general communications channel.
"Attention all players. The Reaper is now active. Repeat, the Reaper is hunting. May God have mercy on your souls. Because he won't. He He's somewhere in the western sector, and he's already claimed 5 teams. Good luck, and remember, death is only the beginning. Yeah.
Volux watched in fascination as the entire dynamic of the battlefield shifted instantaneously. Humans who had been engaged in fierce combat moments before suddenly began cooperating with an efficiency that would have impressed a Threx tactical coordinator. Enemy teams shared intelligence about the location of this Reaper figure with the casual professionalism of allied forces.
Movement in the eastern sector.
One reported over the open channel.
Big guy with rocket launcher just took out Alpha Team. Looked like he was heading toward the container maze.
Copy that. Bravo Team. You might want to avoid that area. He's got elevated firing positions there. Thanks for the heads up. Charlie Team, watch your 6. He likes to flank. Appreciate it. See you in Valhalla.
Oh, baby, save me a beer.
It's like they're 2 different species. Grixon muttered, watching former enemies coordinate their defensive strategies against a common threat. Bloodthirsty warriors one moment, collegial colleagues the next. No, Volux realized with growing unease. They're pack hunters. When faced with a greater predator, they instinctively cooperate, but they go back to competing with each other the moment the threat passes. As if to prove his point, the moment the Reaper moved to a different sector, the teams immediately resumed trying to kill each other, but now with obvious appreciation for each other's tactical thinking. Their observations were interrupted by a nearby commotion. A human had been struck by multiple paint browns and was engaging in what could only be described as performance art.
Tell my wife.
The wounded warrior gasped, reaching out with a paint-covered hand toward his teammate, a woman who was clearly his actual wife, based on her expression of fond exasperation.
Tell her I loved her tacos more than life itself.
I'm right here, Dave, she replied dryly. Also, you hate my tacos.
And tell my kids,
Dave continued dramatically.
Tell them Daddy died doing what he loved, getting absolutely wrecked by superior firepower and questionable life choices.
Dave's wife laughed.
Did you die already, or I'll shoot you myself?
Dave dramatically fell to his knees before her.
Can we get ice cream after this? I may find the strength to survive if you say yes.
Deal. The wife aimed just over her husband's head and shot a player who was sneaking up on them. Then she kissed her husband and knocked him down with her combat boot. He smiled up at her.
I love it you fight dirty.
The wife smiled and ducked behind a tree just as an enemy team approached. Volux was horrified.
They mix mating rituals and warfare.
Moldar looked flustered. Perhaps they're so brain damaged from warfare they're confused? But I admit, seems efficient. Volux couldn't dignify that with a response.
Zeke.
Volux sub-vocalized.
Are you recording all of this?
Every microsecond, sir. Though I'm not sure our language has words for what I'm documenting.
Tactical analysis?
Sir, Zeke paused, and for the first time in her 3 centuries of service, sounded genuinely confused. I don't know how to categorize this. They fight with the ferocity of berserkers, but maintain social bonds that would be envied by any pack species. They show mercy to defeated opponents while simultaneously planning elaborate revenge scenarios. They treat simulated life or death combat as recreational activity, while taking recreational activities as seriously as actual combat. They are brutal one moment and merciful the next. She paused again, then added, Sir, one of them just offered me a sandwich. We're technically enemies in this scenario, but she said I looked hungry and that turkey sandwiches transcend battlefield loyalties.
Did you accept?
It was a very good sandwich, sir. Their tactical discussion was interrupted by an explosion of neon orange paint that covered Volux's left side. According to the tournament rules, he was now wounded and operating at reduced capacity.
Dude, nice hit!
called the human responsible for the throw, a teenager who couldn't have been more than 16 Earth years old.
That was like a perfect arc. Textbook grenade placement. You okay, big guy?
This enemy combatant was now approaching to check on Volok's well-being, apparently unconcerned that he had just wounded someone who stood nearly 7 feet tall and looked like he could bench press a small vehicle.
I am functional,
Volok replied carefully.
Cool. Hey, you're new, right? So how you liking blood splatter? Pretty intense for a first-timer?
It is educational.
Right on, man. Hey, you're taking the hit like a champ. Most people whine when they get tagged with the heavy stuff.
The young human grinned.
Oh, heads up. Jimmy's team has been camping the North Bridge for like an hour. They've got it locked down tight with some kind of crossfire set up, but if you circle around the creek bed, you could probably flank them. Just watch out for the mud. It's like quicksand and smells like something died in it.
Why are you telling me this? Genuinely puzzled.
Because it'll be more fun if you get past their ambush. Jimmy's been getting cocky lately. Needs to be taken down a peg.
The human jogged away, presumably to continue attempting to eliminate Volok's teammates. Modar came out of hiding from the opposite direction the human went.
Sir?
Modar's voice carried the strained quality of someone whose worldview was being systematically demolished and rebuilt in real time.
I'm having difficulty parsing their behavioral patterns. This enemy combatant just provided tactical intelligence that could compromise his own ally's position.
Perhaps
it was misinformation designed to lead us into a trap.
Volok was beginning to suspect that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, their numbers, or even their apparent immunity to conventional psychological warfare. It was their complete and utter incomprehensibility. His contemplation was interrupted by the arrival of Tank. It was covered head to toe in paint of at least 6 different colors, but seemed to be in excellent spirits. He had acquired what appeared to be a trophy, a rubber chicken with First Blood written on it in permanent marker.
Hey, big guy. How's your first taste of organized mayhem treating you?
It is unlike anything in my military experience.
Right? That's what keeps it interesting after 15 years. Hey, you want to see something really cool? Eddie and Sarah rigged up a paint mortar using a leaf blower, a traffic cone, and some kind of veterinary IV equipment. It's completely against the spirit of the rules, but technically legal since nobody thought to ban improvised medical artillery.
Tank led them to where a group of humans had indeed constructed what appeared to be a functioning siege weapon from garden center supplies, automotive parts, and what Modar's scanning equipment identified as medical-grade tubing.
Is that?
Grixon stared at the contraption.
Is that even remotely effective? Oh, hell yeah.
Tank confirmed with obvious pride.
Last year, someone built a functional armored vehicle out of a riding lawnmower, chicken wire, and pool noodles. Thing was practically unstoppable until Miguel calculated the exact trajectory needed to lob a paint grenade through the driver's slot. It was awesome. Dominated 3 matches before we made them register it as a vehicle instead of personal equipment.
Crazy Eddie appeared beside the mortar, grinning like someone who had just discovered fire.
Watch this,
he announced to no one in particular, then loaded what appeared to be a paint-filled balloon the size of a basketball into the improvised launcher. The mortar fired with a satisfying whoop, launching its payload into a perfect arc across the battlefield. It landed among a group of enemy combatants with a wet splat that would have made actual artillery crews nod with professional appreciation.
Beautiful!
Tank cheered.
That's gonna leave a mark.
The targeted humans were applauding.
Nice shot!
One of them called out.
What's the range on that thing? About 150 meters.
Eddie called back.
What made it demonstrate a gun? No, we're good. But seriously, great engineering. Thanks! I'll post the build instructions on the forum later.
Sarah, the veterinarian, emerged from behind the mortar, wiping paint-stained hands on her shirt.
Yeah, the trajectory calculations are surprisingly similar to what I use for anesthesia delivery, she commented.
Same principles of fluid dynamics and pressure differential.
You applied veterinary medicine to artillery construction?
Modar asked weakly. Education is education, Sarah replied with a shrug. I also use horse bandaging techniques to reinforce the pressure chamber. Works great. That evening, as the first day of combat operations wound down, Volux found himself in what the humans called the decompression zone, a designated area where combatants could remove their protective gear, consume alcoholic beverages, and engage in what appeared to be a combination of tactical debriefing and social bonding. Humans, who had been trying to kill each other mere hours before, were now sharing food, comparing battle stories, and offering constructive criticism on each other's techniques. It was like watching a professional military unit decompress after an operation, except everyone involved was voluntarily participating in what was fundamentally an elaborate game.
First day observations.
Volux murmured to his team as they found a relatively quiet corner of the area. Around them, humans were demonstrating tactical maneuvers, showing off weapon modifications, and engaging in what Moldar's linguistic protocols identified as friendly trash talk. Sir, Zeke began, then stopped. I'm not sure how to begin the analysis.
Try,
Volux encouraged. They've weaponized friendship, she said finally. They use cooperation as a competitive advantage, but they also compete cooperatively. They employ psychological warfare that actually improves their opponent's morale. They build military equipment using medical supplies and landscaping tools, then share the construction plans with their enemies.
They treat warfare as entertainment,
Grixon added.
but they apply the same tactical thinking to entertainment that other species reserve for actual warfare.
They're pack hunters who hunt other packs for fun, Modar concluded, but they want their prey to have a good time while being hunted. Volux nodded slowly.
Compile your observations. I need to send a preliminary report to High Command.
2 hours later, he transmitted his final official intelligence assessment. Priority transmission from General Volux, Threx Dominion Strategic Command. To Threx High Command, Military Planning Division. Responding, Earth Reconnaissance, Day 1 Analysis. Command, initial assessment of human military capabilities yields concerning data. Recommend immediate escalation to Phase 2 invasion protocols, pending further observation. Subject species displays unprecedented approach to combat training. Humans appear to treat warfare as recreational activity while maintaining tactical effectiveness that exceeds our theoretical models. Their psychological warfare capabilities suggest deep understanding of enemy psychology combined with complete disregard for conventional military ethics. Key observations. 1. Humans weaponize recreational activities. What appears to be leisure time is actually advanced tactical training. 2. They demonstrate pack hunting behaviors, but apply them recreationally, suggesting warfare is an instinctive social activity. It may also be a mating activity. More data is needed. 3. Technical innovation capabilities are alarming. Multiple humans constructed effective siege weapons from civilian supplies during recreational exercise. 4. They employ psychological warfare techniques that appear designed to improve enemy morale while simultaneously reducing combat effectiveness. Our xenopsychology textbooks contain no reference to this approach. 5. Social cohesion remains intact across enemy lines. Humans maintain cooperative relationships with opponents, suggesting potential resistance to standard occupation tactics. Recommend reevaluation of human technological threat assessment. A species that can construct functional artillery from veterinary supplies and garden equipment may pose greater technical challenges than initial scans suggested. We'll continue observation. Next phase involves monitoring their night operations. General Volux, Threx Dominion Strategic Command. He encrypted the message and transmitted it via quantum relay, then settled in for what the humans ominously called evening activities. Based on what he had observed so far, he suspected that humanity's idea of recreational evening activities would be even more disturbing than their daylight warfare. As it turned out, he was absolutely right. The humans had something called a campfire circle, which sounded innocuous until Volok's realized it was actually a combination intelligence briefing, psychological warfare symposium, and competitive storytelling event. Humans gathered around actual open flames, a fire hazard that would have been banned on any civilized world, and took turns recounting their tactical experiences in increasingly embellished narratives.
So there I was,
A human named Rodriguez was saying,
completely surrounded, down to my last paint pod, when I remembered something my drill sergeant told me in basic training.
The story that followed involved improvised tactics, impossible angles, and what sounded like a religious experience involving a ricocheted paint round and divine intervention. But what truly disturbed Volok's was that other humans were taking notes. They were treating recreational warfare stories as tactical manuals. He was beginning to understand why Earth had been flagged as a potential threat. These weren't just primitive beings playing war games. They were a species that had turned warfare into a form of social evolution. By the third day of what humans casually refer to as a weekend warrior retreat, General Volok's was seriously considering early retirement. His tactical analysis software had crashed twice trying to process human behavior patterns, and his cultural interpretation of algorithms had simply given up and displayed the error message, "Input too chaotic for meaningful analysis." The breaking point came during what organizers called the Sunday Sunrise Slaughter Special. Volok's and his team had spent the previous evening observing human camp activities, which included something called Truth or Dare that seemed designed to extract compromising intelligence from fellow warriors, and campfire stories that were apparently competitive psychological warfare exercises disguised as entertainment. Now, as dawn broke over Bloodsplatter Fest, they found themselves facing the tournament's final challenge, a massive, no-holds-barred elimination match involving every remaining participant.
200 humans enter.
The announcer declared over crackling speakers.
One team leaves. No mercy. No quarter. No prisoners.
Also, we've hidden paint mines throughout the course, so watch your step.
Paint mines? Modar whispered.
Pressure plates connected to paint bombs.
Tank explained cheerfully.
Step wrong and boom! You're covered in enough paint to be visible from orbit. Eddie's been working on them all winter. They're works of art. But that's...
Grixon struggled for words.
That's a war crime under the Geneva Altair Accords.
Tank stared at him blankly.
The what now? The international treaty governing acceptable conduct in warfare. Oh, that.
Tank waved dismissively.
This isn't warfare, buddy. This is paintball. Totally different thing. In paintball, if you're not walking the line between genius and war criminal, you're not trying hard enough.
The horn sounded, and hell broke loose. What followed could only be described as the most beautiful, terrible, magnificent clusterfuck that Volok's had ever witnessed. Humans employed tactics that ranged from inspired to insane, often simultaneously. One team had constructed a functional trebuchet overnight and was launching paint-filled water balloons with medieval enthusiasm. Another group had fashioned smoke grenades and barbecue equipment and were advancing through the chaos like apocalyptic ghosts. But it was the individual human performances that truly shattered Volok's understanding of warfare. There was the warrior they called JJ, who had somehow climbed to the top of a 40-foot radio tower and was providing sniper support with a paintball gun that had clearly been modified beyond all manufacturer specifications. He was picking off targets with precision that would have impressed the Threx marksman, all while hanging upside down and occasionally pausing to take selfies. There was the team that had coordinated their attack strategy through interpretive dance, moving across the battlefield in synchronized chaos that somehow resulted in devastating tactical effectiveness. And then there was the human who broke Volok's brain entirely. His name was Craig. He was a 43-year-old insurance adjuster from Des Moines with thinning hair, a slight beer gut, and what appeared to be last year's sneakers held together with duct tape. He should have been the least threatening combatant on the battlefield. Instead, he was systematically dismantling the most elite teams using nothing but a basic paintball marker, a pocket mirror, and what seemed to be supernatural tactical intuition.
Watch this!
Craig called out to no one in particular, then proceeded to ricochet a paint round off 3 different surfaces to hit a target he couldn't possibly have seen from his position.
Lucky shot!
Someone yelled.
Luck is just preparation meeting opportunity.
Craig replied, then demonstrated his preparation by eliminating 6 more opponents using angles that would have required advanced trigonometry to calculate. Sir, Zeke's voice was barely a whisper, are we witnessing a human tactical savant? I think, Volux replied slowly, we're witnessing why the species hasn't been conquered yet. The match reached its climax when the 2 teams faced off in what the humans called the final circle, a cleared area surrounded by spectators who were cheering, jeering, and providing live commentary with the enthusiasm of sports broadcasters. One team employed coordinated military tactics that would have been textbook perfect in any Threx war college. They moved with precision, communicated efficiently, and executed their strategy flawlessly. The other team's strategy appeared to be run around screaming and hope for the best. The screaming team won. Not through superior firepower or tactical genius, but through sheer, unrelenting chaos that overwhelmed every defensive measure their opponents had prepared for. It was like watching entropy defeat order through pure force of will. As the winners celebrated by dumping coolers of ice over their heads and chanting something that sounded like ancient human war songs, Volux made his decision. Emergency extraction. He sub-vocalized to his team. Now. Sir? Grixon sounded confused. We haven't completed our intelligence gathering. We've gathered enough. Volux was already moving toward their extraction point. More than enough. That night, from the safety of their cloaked vessel in low Earth orbit, Volux composed his final report. Flash priority transmission from General Volox, Threx Strategy Command. 2. Threx High Command. Military Council. Responding. Earth Invasion Assessment. Urgent revision. Sirs, I am formally requesting immediate termination of all invasion planning for the planet designated Earth. After 3 days of deep cover reconnaissance, I must report that humanity represents a threat unlike anything in our tactical databases. They are not a military threat in conventional terms. Their technology is primitive, their organization is minimal, and their strategic thinking appears to be non-existent. They are, however, psychologically immune to conventional warfare. Human beings treat combat as recreation. They find warfare entertaining. They have created elaborate social rituals around the concept of trying to kill each other, and they enjoy it so much that they pay money for the privilege. More disturbing, they are tactically unpredictable in ways that render our strategic models useless. They will sacrifice themselves for no strategic gain, then congratulate their killers on superior technique. They will provide tactical intelligence to their enemies because they think it will make the fight more interesting. They build siege weapons from gardening supplies and consider this normal behavior. Most concerning, their recreational warriors display tactical innovation and battlefield adaptability that exceeds our professional military standards. I witnessed a part-time accountant eliminate a 12-person squad using improvised angles and reflected projectiles. When asked about his technique, he said, and I quote, "I learned it from playing pool and watching Die Hard movies." Recommendation: reclassify Earth as threat level Omega.
Do not engage. Do not contact. Do not approach. These beings do not fight to win. They fight because it is Tuesday. They do not fear death. They consider it a learning experience. They do not follow the rules of war because they do not believe war has rules. We cannot conquer a species that thinks conquest is a game. I am requesting immediate reassignment to desk duty, preferably somewhere far from Earth's solar system. Also, please send a therapy unit to meet us at the extraction point. My team is having difficulty processing what we have witnessed. General Volox, Threx Strategic Command. P.S. They invited us to next year's tournament. I told them we would consider it. I lied. Do not consider it.
The response from Threx High Command came within hours. Message received and understood. Earth reclassified as Threat Level Omega. Unsuitable for contact. System quarantined indefinitely. Your request for early retirement approved. Therapy unit dispatched. Also, we're promoting you. Congratulations on preventing the first military disaster in Threx history. P.S. We're curious about these Die Hard movies. Are they tactical training materials? Volux looked down at Earth one last time as their ship prepared for quantum jump. Somewhere down there, humans were probably already planning next year's Blood Splatter Fest, completely unaware that they had just repelled an alien invasion through the simple expedient of being utterly, magnificently, chaotically themselves.
Sir,
Modor asked.
any final observations?
Volux thought about Craig, the insurance adjuster, about Tank and his philosophical approach to combat ethics, about humans who built artillery from gardening supplies and called it Tuesday.
Yes,
He said finally,
if we're very lucky, they'll never figure out that the universe is supposed to be a rational place.
the ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth spinning peacefully in its orbit, blissfully unaware that it had just become the most feared planet in the galaxy.
Months later, Vollux's memoir, I Fought the Humans and They Laughed,
Became a bestseller across 17 star systems. The Galactic Council officially designated Earth's solar system as a no-travel zone, citing the species as psychologically hazardous to rational thought. And somewhere in Des Moines, Craig, the insurance adjuster, was planning his strategy for next year's tournament, completely unaware that he was now considered one of the most dangerous tactical minds in the galaxy. An insurance adjuster, indeed.